Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining today's webinar. We're going to be diving into how AI and LLMs are changing the way people search and how that impacts your content. We'll be looking, of course, at some Folion docs and how they're seen by AI and what you can do to really get the most out of your Folion docs in this new context of AI. My name is Adele. I'm the product education manager here at Folion. I'll be your host today. A few practical things just before we jump in. Um, the chat is live, so if you have any questions at all while we're talking, please drop them in the chat. We'll make sure that your questions get answered. I have Richard, our VP of marketing, as well as Stan, our integration specialist. Welcome. Thanks both so much for being here.
Good to be here.
Nice. Stan, I want to start with a question for you. Very basic. What are LLMs? How do they work? And how is AI changing the way people interact with content?
Yes. So I'm not going to bore you guys with the actual technicalities of how an LLM works underneath the hood. But I'll just quickly cover what a large language model is in general and what the sort of the key takeaways here are. So everybody, I hope, has heard of large language models over the last couple of years. You can think of your ChatGPTs, your Google Geminis, Claude, Copilot. These are all very common these days. And they are all large language models, which means that they're prediction models trained on immense data sets of text. And so these large language models are these days being used more and more to replace regular keyword searches. So as in the example here on your screen, you can see that a Google search is actually also triggering an LLM search. And this sort of allows us to, instead of searching using keywords, so trying to figure out which words will appear on the pages that I'm looking for, we can actually start asking questions in normal human language, and the LLMs can respond with normal human language as well. So this opens up a whole new sort of world of search together with this AI. If we go ahead and look at the second page, there's one more sort of topic that I want to highlight here, and that's how AI retrieves information. Since the start, AI have always been trained on, as I said before, these immense data sets of text data. And this is sort of the first approach that AI has been taking to retrieve and respond with information. You call it closed book, and it's basically answering based on all of its available training data. But for the last maybe 2 years or so, we have also seen the retrieval augmented approach becoming more and more popular. And this is basically allowing the AI to access the internet, to do web searches, to Google things, for lack of better words. And this is great because instead of relying on the training data to include everything, we can keep the AI up to date with the latest information that's being published on the internet by allowing it to access the internet and search, web search for itself. And this also sort of highlights that even though we're moving away from keyword searches and entering this sort of more natural language focused searching, it doesn't mean that it's the end of search engine optimization. Because LLMs themselves are also accessing the internet and using search engines to look for data. So that's something that I really wanted to highlight there as well.
Yeah, really nice. I think it's, we're definitely shifting the way we're searching. You have that AI overview now, but where does it pull that information from as well? So Richard, maybe a little bit from your perspective in marketing, I'm going to show a few stats on the screen here, just in terms of like the shift to this AI search that Stan was just explaining. I mean, what challenges does this create for marketers and for content in general?
Yeah, so very, very interesting topic, I think, and something that is top of mind, I think, for pretty much every marketing leader out there. Just have to say, I'm very happy that Stan managed the first part of this conversation. But no, this is a big topic, right? So for anybody out there in a commercial organization, or even maybe even a non-commercial organization that relies on their website as their main portal for getting into contact with potential new customers or existing customers, this change in behavior is having a dramatic effect on how well that website can continue to carry out that task for them, essentially. So we talk a lot about organic performance, right? Which means the traffic that finds its way to our web domains without us having to pay for it, essentially. Well, not directly pay for it anyway, because organic traffic is very, very important, because that is high quality traffic. It's the people who are deliberately coming to you to look for a solution or look for information and see if potentially you're an interesting partner for them in whatever shape or form it is that your business might operate. But the challenge now is, because people are consuming information in a different way, and probably even as fundamentally as people are using the internet differently, it means that the role of the website as is, it doesn't really exist in the same way that it did even 2, 3, 4 years ago. People are now able to get answers to questions without having to go to websites. They might get it directly out of their own license in one of the LLMs, in their own ChatGPT, whatever it might be. Or even if they're starting in Google, rather than now clicking on a link to go through to a website, they're getting served LLM snippets of information that might also get the job done for them without having to go anywhere. So if people are no longer actively coming to your website to consume information on the topics that are relevant for you, that has a big impact on your ability to hook into them and get them to convert on your web property and become a lead or become a customer or whatever it is that you want them to do. And we're seeing across the board that organizations are struggling massively with this. They're seeing their organic web traffic drop off a cliff. And the challenge with that is not only the fact that the traffic is down, but it's high quality traffic. I mean, as organizations, we can continue to spend money on paid advertising to drive visitors to our websites, but they're often, in marketing language, they are low intent visitors. You've challenged them to think about something and they've responded to it, but they're not typically as far down the journey as someone who's usually coming to you from an organic perspective and has already decided they're looking for something, they need to understand something, they want a solution for something. Yeah, that's the traffic that's dropping off a cliff. And that's what's leading to real challenges from a commercial perspective for a lot of organizations.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you mentioned a few things just in terms of, your organic search dropping, AI search increasing, but all the meanwhile, you still need to capture leads. So I want to break that down just a little bit further. Why is it so hard to keep organic traffic strong while then also capturing leads?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a sort of catch-22, I think, for organizations, as I say, that rely on their website to generate contact moments that they can then follow up, right? So leads. So on the one hand, what's traditionally been the sort of main method for people to collect contact data on their websites, of course, is to gate content. White papers, ebooks, reports, research, whatever it might be, put that behind a download button, challenge people to want to consume it, make it look interesting, make it look relevant, ask them to leave their details and they can have it, right? Now, that is, I think, what a lot of organizations still lean on today in order to collect contact details that they can then follow up, right? Now, to do that, you have to invest time and energy in building assets that are desirable and interesting enough that people are prepared to leave their information to consume them. But of course, the challenge with doing that, if you build those assets and you then put it behind a gate, is that content is then not discoverable by the LLM. Because it's hiding behind a gate, the crawlers that come from the LLMs, and I think Stan can probably explain this better than I can, we'll do in a minute, but essentially that content is blind to them. So on the one hand, you are investing heavily in building high value content that you hope will encourage people to get in contact with you. But at the same time, you have this fundamental challenge with needing to do a better job of being found by the AI machines, but you're putting your time and effort into something that is not fixing that problem. So you get caught in this sort of, as I say, a little bit catch-22. Most organizations have limited capacity to some extent in terms of their ability to build, design, create content. What do I do? do I spend that time and energy trying to fix my AI findability challenge and make sure that my organic performance can be steadied or improved even, hopefully? But then what do I do in terms of continuing to deliver these assets that will allow me to collect leads? And that's a little bit the challenge. You haven't got enough capacity to do both. What do you do? And trying to decide where to, put your money down, that's difficult.
Yeah. Given all of that kind of push and pull between what type of content you are creating and how much time you have to create that content, what does a better approach look like that could kind of help solve that challenge?
Yeah, so we're here today to talk a little bit about how Folion potentially is the sort of two birds with one stone solution here, right? Because, and again, I'm going to let Stan get into the technicals on this, but essentially what you can do with Folion, right? Anyone who uses Folion now will understand the ability that we have to offer flexible gating, right? So it's not the idea that you have to sort of do your best to sell an asset and persuade someone to fill in their information before they can download it. We can put a gate anywhere in a Folion doc. We can put it at the beginning, at the middle, the end. You can make it a hard gate or a soft gate. There's a lot of flexibility there to serve that content, engage people with it, but still hopefully collect the information you're looking for your sales team or whoever is going to follow up. The bonus of a Folion doc versus something like a PDF is, of course, that because we're an HTML5 document, that code is available for being discovered and being used to train the large language models. Because whereas a PDF hiding behind a gate is not visible, we are visible. And even versus something like one of the other digital content creation tools that are out there that you can use to create HTML5 content, we are alone in our space in the content and how the content is being rendered. I think I might let Stan explain that.
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly exactly
that's
it.
critical. That's critical to why we can offer a solution for both of these things if you build your content in Folion.
Great. Yeah, I think that's definitely where we head over to Stan to really go through the more technical, practical side of this. You mentioned how the content is rendered, and that kind of setup that we have in terms of how content on Folion is rendered. That's one of the reasons Folion docs, are accessible and visible to AI and LLMs. So, Stan, maybe you can walk us through what does server-side rendering mean, and how is it different from client-side rendering?
Absolutely. So server-side and client-side rendering are both strategies that you can employ to render a page. So that means making the page visible on your screen, right? And server-side rendering means that most of that work is being done on the server, so on Folion's end in this case. Whereas client-side rendering means that the browser itself on your computer is doing the rendering itself. This rendering is often done using JavaScript, which is a programming language common on the internet. And the main limitation with this is that robots, so your search engine crawlers or your AI, LLM chatbots, they're often not allowed or able to run this JavaScript, meaning that when they visit the page, there's very little for them to actually inspect and see. Whereas with server-side rendering, we have already rendered a large part of the web page in advance. So what we do here at Folion is we create a lean sort of skeleton version of your web page, of your Folion doc, that includes all the text, all the URLs, all the backlinks to all your other documents or other web pages. And in this skeleton HTML document, we send over to the browser. And in the case of an AI chatbot or a search engine crawler, they can actually read the content in advance. So without having to run the JavaScript, without having to render all the bells and whistles, animations, all the images, it can actually just serve this content really quickly because it's a bare bones document, very skeletal document, super fast to load, and it's actually readable by the robots in this case. So faster loading, this improves your SEO ranking. The faster your page loads, the higher your page will rank. And the higher your page will rank, the higher the chances are that an AI will pick it up for its response. And of course, that full crawlability, that's very important. They'll be able to read all the content. They'll be able to see which links you're linking to. and using that to come up with an appropriate response to the question. So it gets all the information that it needs using this server-side rendering approach.
Right. So, it's basically just the way that Folion is set up from that's like very technical side that already gives you that advantage of, that text that you're creating being accessible. But one of the things we talk a lot about, of course, that's really important for search and visibility in general is your domain health, like you've mentioned. So for server-side rendering, there's nothing you need to do or change in order to make this work. This is all inherent in Folion. But one of the things you can do is influencing how your docs are hosted. So one of the options we have is reverse proxy, and that's one of the options we discussed that can actually support your domain health. So yeah, Stan, tell us a bit more. What is reverse proxy, and a little bit more about the benefits behind that?
Yeah. So reverse proxy, it doesn't necessarily make the content visible or make the content available to AI. That's already the case, as you said, with the standard Folion doc approach. The reverse proxy is really aimed at improving your SEO authority and thereby making the content easier to find for an AI. And so it does this by consolidating the authority of your main website's domain, so your landing page and all the content that's hosted on your main website, and adding Folion's content on top of that, so they can work together to build the authority for the domain. So here in the visual shown on screen, you can sort of see how that would work. You have your website, in this case example.com. And example.com might have a bunch of pages. It might have your landing page. It might have a blog. But then we also might want to put we call it a path prefix here in the example. And this could be example.com/content or example.com/resources. And we reserve this path in your URL to reroute all the traffic that goes to that path, actually reroute it to Folion servers. So for the user, it doesn't really feel like you're visiting a different website. The URL remains, in this case, example.com. But under the hood, we're actually connecting to Folion servers. So you get sort of the best of both worlds here. You get all the ease of republishing and easily publishing and creating content using Folion, hosting that using Folion's hosting capabilities. But you get to build the authority of your main website's domain together with that. And this improved authority, this improved ranking, of course, is going to help AI find your content more easily and thereby use it in its responses more accurately.
Thanks, Dan. I do have an example of a customer who's using reverse proxy. So let me go ahead and share my screen quickly here. So this is from one of our customers, RLB, and what you see on the screen here is their website. You can see it's rlb.com/Europe. So this is just their regular old website. But if I go over to a Folion doc here, this is fully created in Folion, and what you see is as you explained, some nuances here with the URL. So same website, rlb.com/Europe. Then they have the resources here, which is that path prefix you mentioned, which routes everything to Folion, and the rest, of course, determines which Folion doc then. But what I really like about this example, of course, not just the fact that they're using reverse proxy, but what I like about it is that they've thought really carefully about the design and how to make it a very, let's say, seamless experience as you're going between their website and the Folion doc. So that creates a lot of, it doesn't matter if they end up on the Folion doc versus the website. It's all connected and looks very well thought through. Of course, you can do this with other tools, right? So you can host on a custom domain. You could embed an iframe on your website to have a similar experience. But what what would be the benefit of doing this on reverse proxy over something like custom domains or embedding?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think we have a sort of a comparison slide also for this to go over this. Because indeed, they all come with their pros and cons. I think the reverse proxy is probably, with regards to SEO, is by far the best option, because you can consolidate the authority of your main website together with all the content that you produce on Folion. But like you said, you also have other options. You can go for a custom domain. This works just as well. It's also crawlable for AI. It's findable for search engines. Relatively good for SEO, just not as good as the reverse proxy would be, seeing as you're basically now having two domains that are competing probably for the same keywords, and competition between your domains it's going to slightly affect your performance with regards to SEO. And then the other option is embedding in an iframe. This allows you to really flexibly embed it straight into your website, so you can keep certain parts of your website intact. For example, if you have a very complicated navigation structure on your website and you want to keep that, you could sort of sandwich your Folion doc in between existing elements on your website. So this could be very useful in specific cases, but this is really going to affect your SEO performance and in turn your AI visibility. Seeing as an iframe, technically speaking, wouldn't be considered part of your website by a crawler or an LLM. So that's sort of something to take into account. And additionally, it also because it's a piece of code that you need to place onto your website, you might need your web team to support you to republish or publish new content. Whereas with the aforementioned two options, you get to have the benefits of Folion's easy republishing and publishing approach. So it's sort of it depends on your specific situation which option is best for you. But I'd say the key takeaway here is that the reverse proxy option is really going to provide the most benefit and is probably the best approach if you really want to focus on improving your AI visibility and how AIs are going to consume your content.
Yeah. Richard, maybe a quick question for you. How do you see Folion fitting into your overall, let's say, website and content strategy?
Yeah, so I actually love the RLB example that you showed, because they're bringing a number of strands of the Folion value prop together there in a really, really smart way, which makes it a great example, right? So on the one hand, they're making sure that when they're building content that they want to support them in generating leads. I think there's a little cost calculator part of the document, for example, you see at the top. They've got that there in a very, very seamless website environment in a way that they can still encourage people to do that engagement on the content and still collect that information without having to build an asset that is not going to support their SEO and AI findability. So they're building high value assets that are supporting their organic performance and still enabling them to capture that lead information where it makes sense. So that's really, really good. But on top of that, they're also leaning on Folion to give them more speed and agility in expanding their website footprint. I think they've done an amazing job of building a Folion template that looks, to all intents and purposes, exactly the same as what they've got on their core CMS. So I would imagine 99 out of 100 people will have no idea that they've gone from the core CMS over to Folion. Now, why is that important? Well, in terms of, as I say, speed and agility, they do not need to lean on the core web team anymore to get content onto the website or to manage content that's already up, update it, change it, manage integrations with other tech, etc. The people who are in charge of Folion can do that themselves. So they've reduced the bottleneck there in terms of being able to quickly develop and deploy high-performing content that will capture leads and support their organic strategy. So all those things together, that comes together really, really nicely, and it's a great example of what you can do with Folion if you put it to work in the right way.
Very nice. I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll right now as well for those of us who are joining live. If you are interested in exploring reverse proxy as an option for you, let us know in the poll. If you are interested, your CSM will be available to discuss this with you and make sure you've got the right setup, also for your overall content strategy, as Richard was explaining as well. So let's say, you've got your docs in Folion, they're accessible by AI search. Maybe you've moved already over to a reverse proxy, so supporting your domain. But Richard, you explained at the beginning, you still at the end of the day need to capture leads. You need to have a gate in there somewhere. So I'm going to show another example from one of our customers. And I love this doc. One, it's just a great doc. They've done an amazing job of designing this. But at the same time, this has a lot of really great content in terms of, sure, their offerings, their services, but it has a lot of information, also examples and tips and best practices. But you can see if I go over to this page here, there's a gate here. There's lots of content behind this gate. So after you fill in your name and your email, you get access to that. But I'm curious, Stan, how does AI see this gate? How does AI then interact with everything that's behind this?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's also an important point to raise because a lot of these sort of similar gates, as Richard's already brought up before, actually sort of block the rest of the actual content, also for robots and AI and crawlers and such. But the difference here with Folion is that we actually make the content available in this lean sort of skeletal form that I was talking about earlier as well. So while the visitor, the human actually visiting the website, can't continue past the gate here, any web crawler or AI tool is able to find their way past this gate. So the customer can ask the AI questions about all the content, and they'll be able to find that information and respond with the source or with the information that they requested. But then if they actually visit the doc itself, they'll still be prompted with this gate, and you'll still be able to get that lead in as normal. So that's it's sort of a best of both worlds approach.
Richard, I mean, how much of a game changer is this? The fact that the gated content can then still be read by AI?
Yeah, I think it's a very important point, right? I mean, as long as there's been marketing, there have been debates about should you gate or not gate your content. Do you want everybody, as many people as easily as possible, to read what you have to say and be influenced by it and hopefully be attracted to you as a provider of a product or a service? Or do you want to make sure you collect enough leads? And I think I speak to other marketing leaders, and a lot of people are increasingly going down the road of saying, well, everybody's getting so much information from LLMs. If I don't make it available, no one's going to read it. So I'm going to have to ungate it anyway, just to make sure I give it myself a chance of it being found. Of course, the challenge is most businesses still want to collect information, right? That you've got, give people the opportunity to put their hand up and say, I'm interested, please, get in contact with me. I think what the flexibility of our gate offers is very, very important here because as Stan pointed out, wherever you put it, the whole document is still available to the crawler. So all that content, whether your human reader picks it up or not, is at least fueling that AI machine and making sure that you are influencing the answers that come out of it. But equally, the fact that, you can put it at the beginning, at the middle, at the end, you can make it blocking, you can make it not blocking. You're giving your reader an opportunity to put their hand up and say, yes, I'm interested to be contacted, but in a much less invasive way than it just being a hard, put your information in or you get nothing from us at the start of the process, which, most people would not want to do today. I think this gives you the flexibility to still be able to collect data, but make sure that it doesn't impede your performance in any way, which I think is a critical point of the conversation.
Yeah, I think, going back to this diagram that we have here, we showed this earlier, we've touched on, AI being able to access that organic content that you're creating. We've touched on that gate so that you're still able to create leads, while creating your content. But the last thing we haven't touched on so much, a bit here and there, is that capacity gap. So how do you feel that Folion can kind of help with the capacity gap in this bigger picture?
Yeah. So I touched a little bit on it with what RLB are doing, right? So the point being that, we all have to do more with less today. And the thing about building content in Folion versus maybe on your CMS or maybe via DTPs who are building PDFs, whatever it might be. As anybody who's ever heard me talk about Folion before, we are set up to scale, right? Our drive is to help our customers make everything they need as quickly and as easily and with as little friction as possible. So what we're trying to do is make sure that it's not only easy and fast to make something that's really good, we also want it to perform from a technical perspective. So when you're investing time and money in content to show your expertise, whether it's thought leadership, whether you're publishing reports or research, whatever it might be, we want to make sure that it's not only highly effective for your human audience that you're building it for, but also that you get value from it on the back end as well from a technical perspective. And then if you layer in the fact that it can really complement your website experience without necessarily needing to lean on technical resources to do it, you don't need to code, you don't need to be working in heavy or maybe not so user-friendly CMS systems. We are trying to make sure that you can really put your content footprint out there in a widely accessible, highly engaging, but technically high-performing way. And by making that possible for more people in the organization than a limited group of technical specialists, which is what you often get if you're either leaning on specialist designers or a specialist web team.
Yeah, I think we're heading into a new year. It's almost 2026. It's very clear that AI isn't going anywhere, and like you said, you need to be creating content that then also supports that. And as we continue looking forward, into the next year, what tips or suggestions would both of you have for the future of content about kind of what's next and what's coming? Maybe Stan, let's start with you.
Yeah. No, I think for the future, I think it's good to think about scalability versus your quick wins. We've talked about the reverse proxy approach. We've talked about creating content that's accessible to AI, and because AI is so it works with so much data, it can really help to have a large chunk of your own information be part of that data, right? The more you can take ground in the training data and the data that it finds online, the more it will use your information. So I think it's really a question of scalability. So try to figure out what you can do in order to really boost your process and mass produce that content in order to be part of the training data and rank high in the search results, so you can be part of that response that the AI is going to provide.
Richard?
Yeah, I suppose what I would say is, I know that even at some of our, most widely adopted and enthusiastic customers, there are still, lots of PDFs being made. And what I would say is maybe this story here today is perhaps just an extra step to start thinking about, how can we persuade people maybe who are still very focused on PDFs and the value that they bring, which they do in certain situations, but the fact that so much knowledge and expertise and valuable information gets put into PDFs that hides behind download buttons. It's such a pity if that's not increasing your organizational footprint across the web and across AI. And just to think, if you are experiencing challenges with organic, if you are seeing traffic to your website falling down, think about how much valuable information you've maybe got locked away in assets at the moment that are not being crawled, and think what it could do for your performance if you were to bring that over into Folion and get it made into Folion docs. Because I think there's probably a significant win for a lot of our customers out there if they can think about that and get some of that into practice.
Thank you both so much for your insights. I think we've unpacked a lot today, just in terms of your Folion docs, how they work, how AI is changing that, and what you can do to make sure that you're creating content that brings people in, converts, all those things that you want to do with your content. Do it at scale with great docs content that's on brand and representing your company as well. So thank you both so much for your insights today. Just before we finish off, a quick note: if you are interested in anything we've mentioned today at all, reverse proxy gating content, or just exploring your content strategy further, please reach out to your CSM. We are always here to help you in this process. So thanks again, Richard, Stan. Thanks so much for being here, and appreciate your time, and we'll see you at the next webinar.